Today we're making brioche, or as I like to call it, Vrioche. This is one of the most versatile, soft and fluffy doughs in the repertoire. I use it as a base for nearly all my sweet risen or sweet yeasted goods. It's got 2 or 3 things going for it that make it this way. So we're using extra virgin olive oil instead of butter, but a little bit less than I guess you'd say is traditional. So we're going to use the tanzon, where we'll pre-cook a portion of flour and water, and this creates a paste that lets us add extra moisture into the dough while keeping it supple and workable and not too soft. And sweet potato will do the same thing, add more moisture into the dough, and allows us to reduce the fat content a little bit. And also, sweet potato will lend a beautiful golden color. Let's do it. So we're going to start by preparing our tanzon. So we'll add our water and a small portion of flour. Before we turn the heat up, we just want to mix this to dissolve the flour. So we just want to make sure that when we swirl it around, there are no lumps before we start heating it up. Otherwise, we can get lumps. And then we're just going to stir it. And we want to bring it to a boil, so it'll start to thicken up and kind of bubble. As soon as it comes to a boil and has the same kind of even glossy consistency, we're done. You can see it's starting to thicken up. We just want to keep stirring. It looks a little bit clumpy, so we want to keep stirring this until it is the same consistency all the way through. So you can see it's kind of become a bit pasty, and we just want to stir this until it's the same lump-free paste. So that is our tanzon. Now when we prepare a tanzon, it is important that we don't have air on the surface of the tanzon, otherwise we'll get a skim. So to avoid that, we do need to press something, whether it's a silicone mat or some plastic wrap, onto the surface. What I like to do is do that on the bench, just by scraping it all out onto a piece of plastic wrap and then pressing the plastic wrap all the way around it. This just makes it a bit thinner, increases the surface area. So as you move around the bench, you'll find that within 2 or 3 minutes it's cooled down to room temperature. But we're going to put this in the fridge and use it cold. So next up, we're going to add our instant yeast to the milk. Instant yeast can be mixed directly into your dough. You don't need to rehydrate it or activate it. Active yeast you would need to. So active yeast in the drying process has a layer of, I guess, dead yeast around the outside that needs to be dissolved in warm liquids. In this case, I'm just adding it out of habit. But we just want to mix these together, but we don't have to, unless we're using active dry yeast. I'm adding all of our ingredients: the flour, the caster sugar, salt, golden syrup, milk and yeast mixture, olive oil, and sweet potato. So this is sweet potato that I've previously cooked and frozen, and I've just defrosted it before mixing it into the dough. So that's all the ingredients except for our tanzon, which is cooling down. The key here is to mix this dough until it is really nicely developed, and then we add the tanzon last. We want to mix everything on low speed to start until everything's combined. Once everything is combined, we can then turn the speed up to about medium speed for about up to 5 minutes. After about 5 minutes, our dough has achieved window pane stage, and we can add our tanzon. Why the order is important is just for consistency, so that everything combines really nicely. So consistency is really important when mixing this dough, because because we're working with a liquid fat, we have to combine it in a way that we get the gluten development. So if I was to add it last, like we do add butter when we make brioche, then my dough would be sloshing around the bowl, so we don't want that. So we add it first, mix it until well developed while it's still a bit tight, and then we can add the extra liquid that comes from the tanzon. So just putting the mixer back on to a lower speed and mixing until everything's nicely combined. The mixture can feel as though it's mixing a lot and the tanzon is just kind of mixing around the bowl, but after about 1 or 2 minutes that tanzon will be incorporated into the dough for a beautiful, smooth and supple dough. Our dough mix comes cleanly off the side of the bowl. We have a lovely supple texture and it hasn't mixed above 28 degrees Celsius. This is important because above this temperature the yeast can start to overwork, so we don't want that. And so that's ready to go. So we have this beautiful, soft, supple dough that is really well developed. It's really soft, but it's not sticky. That's because it's just really well mixed. The next step is what we call our bulk ferment, where we're going to leave it for up to 2 hours to double in size. This is really important for developing that bold and yeasty flavor and for relaxing the dough before we use it. Now this stage can also be done in the refrigerator overnight. We just need to place our dough into a bowl with space for it to double. To avoid the skin forming on top, we can just put a piece of cling wrap or a plate. A plate is really useful as well if you're trying to cut out plastic. So that's in the fridge overnight or for 2 hours until doubled.